All right, here for the weekend pod with Daniel, talking about United 1, Fulham 0. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good.
Very good. Did you enjoy yesterday's game?
Was it yesterday? No, it wasn't yesterday.
Friday.
It was Friday.
All
yeah.
blends into one.
I tell you what, I'm sitting there that first 20 minutes and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't do another season like this. I'll do fucking time. I cannot watch another season of this. And in fairness, it changed off. It did get much better. I mean, I think after about 10 minutes, I was like shouting, I need a centre forward. Just give me a centre forward. But it did get better after that. And I think that if you were looking at it with the intention of saying, I told you he's shit, then you'd find enough to go on. But also, if you've with the intention of thinking, look, it's improving, then you could also look at that game and see that as well.
I mean, I guess Fulham just aren't very good, right? That's part of it. But I like the pattern of the game didn't surprise me, given that we spoke last weekend about United might struggle playing this no striker system against teams that play a deep block because everything was in front of them, you know. But surprisingly, actually, they managed to create a few chances that were like through balls and cutbacks and, you know, some really good chances. I think it was 5 big chances in this game, which added up to a really high XG, including Alejandro Garnacho's, which was a 0.7 XG chance. They fluffed right at the end. Yeah. By the way, before we get deep into the analysis of the game, I was going to regale a car story.
Let's do it. Yes.
Yeah. So Thursday night, coming back from swimming with the little one, and we're both like, there's a funny sound coming out of the car. What's going on? This is my the Maserati, and
just drop that in.
Just drop that in. You know?
Big head to this Maserati.
That's right. I hope to become Swiss Tony, the car salesman one day. Anyway, yeah, we're coming back, and there's this kind of rhythmic, weird sound. We're like, there's something going on here, and it gets louder and louder, and I'm like, I'm going to pull over. And just as I'm pulling over, there's this almighty crunch from the back left, and I'm like, what the hell has gone on there? Get out of the car. And the wheel has fully fallen off the car.
Oh, is this shoddy workmanship, Edward?
It might be. I don't know. I mean, I've tightened all the bolts properly and done everything correctly, but somehow they've worked their way loose, and it's just worked its way around the entire car. So yeah, I walked up the street picking up as many bolts as I could, and had to roll it home at 10 miles per hour with like 3 bolts on the back wheel.
Oh, Christ. And how is it now?
Well, I've ordered some new ones and I'm going to go fit them today. So,
what a guy. So let me tell you about my adventure for the week. So I'm crap at hearing. In general, I think I'm crap at having senses, but I'm crap at hearing. And so my wife would come into a room when I'm working and she's like, why have you got everything up so loud? I don't. Yes, you do. Or I missed the door. Stuff like this. So I go and see an ENT specialist. And he sticks a microphone down my ear and says, you've been using cotton buds, right? And I say, yeah, I mean, I know you're not meant to, blah, blah, blah. He's like, right, when you use the cotton buds, what happens is like bits of the fibers on the cotton buds just fall off. And also you're shoving shit nearer to your eardrum. So I'm going to hoover your ears. The inside of your ears, and then we'll see. And he hoovers the inside of my ears, and presto, I can hear.
It's very good.
It's great. It's an interesting. It's a bit like, I mean, people who wear their contact lenses and glasses probably know what I'm talking about here. When you get a fresh prescription, and for sort of the first 10 minutes to half an hour after you get a fresh prescription, you're like, yeah, you can see around corners.
They do this thing here, where when you go for an eye test, they stick these drops in your eyes and you can't see properly. And I feel like I've had them before, but like it's an extraordinarily large amount of not being able to see. And so I've driven home from these appointments in the past going, I'm sure that's a car coming my way.
This is like when you get banned from driving and you've driven to the court case.
Yeah.
And you're like, right, I now have to go, and there's only one way of doing this. Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah. Well, you would get banned from driving. Yeah.
I have
Thump.
I got
I think that was a squirrel or a human, maybe. I'm not sure.
I got banned for speeding en route to the 2004 Cup final. When you cross over into Wales, there's no lanes, and it's almost like an F1 track. So you slam your foot down, which I guess is what they intend for you to do. And I got busted. I was doing like 90 something, and I pleaded the Fergie defence that I needed a shit, and didn't work as well. Not as well for me as it did for him. They go, like, you hear the mumble at the front. It's not quite 100 yet, but it's nearly 100 year, 4 weeks. I did get congratulated for the way I presented my own defence. I did get I did get a 4-week ban for that. But it's kind of one of those things also where it's just like, yeah, I guess who speeds on their way into Wales? I guess you speed on your way out of Wales, maybe. In the same way, like, why do they charge you to go in to Wales?
So hang on, you presented your own defence. Did you examine yourself? Were you like in the dock and then running around going?
I can't remember exactly how it went down, but they did say you did a good job, and a much better job than the people usually do. But I mean,
all right.
I was still a lawyer at that point, I think.
All right, making a quick segue. United's defence was all right yesterday, I mean, where should we start? Like,
let's start with the team. Should we start with the team selection?
Start with the team selection. Went with the sort of double 10s, double false 9s up front with Mason Mount and Bruno. I guess no real surprise at the back. I mean, we said Mazraoui will probably have to play, and you called it as him playing at right back and Dalot at left back. And then in midfield, Casemiro, who had a decent game. I think there's zero chance of it lasting, but we'll come to that. And then I guess the other big call was Rashford and Ahmad over Garnacho and whoever. And Sancho out of the squad altogether because he had, what was Eric's excuse? He had a sore throat or something. He had a cold, something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, the team was more or less right. I mean, I think we did get the team right, didn't we, the other day? Because we felt like it would probably be, you want it to be De Ligt, but it will probably be Maguire. Maguire play well.
Yeah.
It's not, the point with Maguire will never be that he's a total fucking donkey who's always useless. It's that he's not good enough, and therefore we need someone who is. But yeah, I thought he played quite well. I thought his passing was lousy, but he actually did pretty well at helping keep the line high. And when it could have got tight towards the end, he was fairly composed, I would say.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good enough performances in this team all round. I mean, you start with the defence. I mean, Onana didn't have a lot to do. One great save early on from Tete, the Fulham right back, who just kind of wandered through the entire team, which was not awesome. But Mazraoui did well. You can see immediately. I mean, it's no surprise to anyone because we've seen a lot of him, obviously, but very comfortable on the ball in all sorts of situations, wanders into midfield just kind of naturally. If he stays fit, a good addition, I imagine.
Mazraoui is excellent. That was. You watch Mazraoui play, and you're like, this guy knows how to play this position.
He does,
and I didn't think that when I watched Wan-Bissaka play. I thought he can do this one thing well, but I'm not confident with having him there. And for Mazraoui, he wasn't brilliant. And Ten Hag, I thought, was quite good on him, saying that he played well, but there's a lot more that he can do that he didn't do. But this is a performance of 75%. But I just feel that sometimes, like, when you have someone you sort of been trying to convince yourself is sometimes adequate in particular circumstances, when you then see someone who actually, this is what it's meant to look like, you kind of do have a moment where you're like, okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go over the top with the analysis. And Dalot is fine on the other side. I mean, you get all the same usual problems with him when he's on that side, in that there's no like he's not going to create the space for Rashford to cut inside by overlapping, and he just doesn't do that. And it is kind of extraordinary that United have gone into yet another season without a left back, but hey, this is what United do, apparently. But yeah, I think lots to praise in the back four. All did pretty well against a team that didn't have huge amounts of ambition. Had a few moments, of which, obviously I had the US commentary here, but I caught some of Gary Neville's pieces that were flying around, and people understandably annoyed with him because he'd find doom inside a rainbow, wouldn't he? He would, when it comes to United. So
back to Mazraoui, what I really like about him is I like the physicality. Really like the physicality, and I like the fact that it's almost like it's not a big deal. It's just, this is what you're meant to do. You're meant to be this, and it's not. But also, the way that he looks to pick passes through the lines is also extremely helpful. And once I think we've got the list next to him, I don't know when we're going to do that, because Harrence goes off, doesn't he, with some kind of precautionary withdrawal.
Yeah, he was holding his calf, so we'll see about that one.
Because, as I said, we've got Liverpool coming up in 2 weeks. We do need to get De Ligt into the team as soon as possible, because he's been bought to play. So you don't want to be in a situation where just because he wasn't quite fully fit at the beginning of the season, you have to wait for Harrence to have a stinker before you can actually play someone instead of him. And that is the thing, you get these players, and Harrence is one who somehow, when you drop them, it just always seems to cause aggravation.
Yeah, I wonder whether he's been dropped enough now that it's not so much of a story. He didn't start that many Premier League games last season, did he? Or maybe he did.
No, we had that narrative about him somehow coming back in and bossing it, which is not really how I remember it. But yeah, I don't know, I'm just like, while I think about this, Enzo Fernandez, Chelsea and City had just kicked off as we watched this. And Enzo Fernandez's reward for on-camera racism is
to be club captain,
which makes perfect sense. He's proper Chelsea.
Proper Chelsea, yeah. Couldn't be more Chelsea.
And the other thing that's happened with, so you've seen this, Raheem Sterling's been left out of the squad today. And so his people have left a statement, and it goes, as a camp, we have always had positive dialogue with and assurance from Chelsea FC in relation to Raheem's future at the club, amongst other things. As a camp. What? Is that a job? Place of work? What? Name, occupation. Raheem Sterling's camp. What? As a camp. It's so bafflingly oblivious.
Yeah. Oh no, it's very oblivious, but it's also straight out of the Football Cliches podcast, that one, isn't it? It's the language of football. It's become so insidious that the players are making statements as a camp. The Enzo Fernandez thing, I think it's really disgusting because, obviously you couldn't get more, as was said, unmitigated racism, making fun of black players in the France squad because they have immigrant parents. It was purely disgusting. And Chelsea thought, well, we'll put out a no apology statement, and that's enough. It's done with. And we're all good again, apparently.
But actually, it wasn't enough. They had to give it the captain's armband. Now it's enough.
Apparently. Football really, I don't want to sound like an old man shouting at clouds, but football's moral centre. I don't know whether it's ever been worse, to be honest. We had De Zirkzee praising Mason Greenwood, scored twice, assisted one, could have had a hat-trick and gave it to the debutant striker, the second penalty in that game. And De Zirkzee praised him as being a really excellent player. Okay, fine. And then said his goals will calm the controversy. I'm like, hang on. No, he can score 100 goals this season. He'll still be a wife beater and a rapist. That's not going to change.
But yet, in a sense, De Zirkzee is probably correct.
Yeah, in the kind of realpolitik side of things.
He means it in almost a moral sense, and obviously he's totally wrong and an embarrassment to himself and his family. But in terms of reality, there will come a point where maybe he'll score enough goals that people don't talk about this stuff anymore.
He's going to look. He played at Getafe last season, won Player of the Year, did pretty well playing right wing in a 4-4-2, right?
I always think of the Lampoli when I hear the name Getafe. Do you remember the Lampoli advert? Get away.
Right? Yeah.
I always
just do it in a comedy accent, right? And you got it. Yeah. So he's going to Marseille. It's French league. He's going to play much higher up the pitch and close to the goal. He's going to score tons of goals. Of course he is, right? Doesn't change the fact that he got away with beating up his girlfriend and raping her, against her wishes. So that's a redundant term, but yeah, football's moral centre, hey. And we have Erik ten Hag in charge of United, and he thoroughly wanted to bring him back to the club, and it was really only the fans online that stopped that happening.
Yeah, but
Awesome.
I guess back to United. I think Casemiro looked in much better shape than he has for quite some
undoubtedly.
time. Actually did all right. We don't know how it's going to go against better teams. We do need someone in instead of him as soon as possible.
Well, I think it's he's had a summer off. I think once he's got 20 games in the legs, that's when I think we'll probably see the Casemiro of last season, or maybe even closer sooner. There was, I think it was Stretford Trends on Twitter, probably a Y Scout clip, had 4 minutes of every action that Casemiro did in the game against Fulham. If you've got 4 minutes to waste, you could waste it on worse things than checking this out. And it's a real mixed bag. There's some great passing in there, some really incisive stuff. It's, a good number of interceptions and clearances, and he's great in both boxes with his head, and then a bunch of wasteful passing, and just letting players run past him as well.
And I think this is why I kind of enjoyed Mazraoui's performance so much. Just it wasn't that good. It was just that it was competent, and it's just someone doing the stuff that the person who plays their role is meant to do. And we don't get a lot of that. Like, we get workarounds and occasionals, but just a proper solid right back performance. So when was the last time we saw one of those from someone playing for United? I mean, literally like years and years ago. And I said this at the time. I think of our summer signings, I felt like it would not be long before he had Dallow's place at right back, and actually moving Dallow to left back sort of makes it easier in a sense. If Dallow just plays left back till Shaw comes back, Mazraoui plays well in the meantime, the chances are it's Dallow who's getting turfed out of the team, not Mazraoui. And just seeing, and the other one was Zirkzee, who just, it felt like when we bought him, even when all I'd watched was the same clips that everyone else had watched, felt like he is a much better fit for this team as a centre forward than Højlund. And I think we saw that when he came on. There was some lovely touches. And what you get with him is, because he comes back into midfield, it means you're able to have an extra man if you want one. And one of the things that I think he had to improve at is exactly what we saw at the weekend, is fine that you want to come deep, but you need to get some goals. And I know he scored quite a few last season, but that goal that he scored at the weekend was ideal in a way, because he's involved in the play, but he doesn't forget. Because one of the things I used to find most frustrating about watching Berbatov would be like, did no one ever just say to him, after you come deep and do the clever bit, just fucking run your ass off in a straight line?
Get into the box.
But he got to the box, and it's quite rare, and I don't know if anyone else found this, where you see a goal and you're like, not quite sure how the ball got into the net there, which makes you think that it was a fluke of some sort, and on telly they thought it was an own goal. But then you see it again, it's like, oh, that is very good. That was a really good finish.
You really needed it took like several replays from different angles to work out that he'd angled his foot. He played it down to third man very nicely there, and in order to score a brilliant finish. Brilliant finish, and it looked like it might have been an own goal or Scott McTominay at first, but great. I mean, I don't want to. I think there'll be times when we need Rasmus Højlund's running in the channel and the sort of power, but I think, as I said last week, it's harder to see where Højlund gets to be Højlund in the way Erik ten Hag seems to want to play, like either playing very direct out to the wide plays, extremely vertical, or this new system he's found, which is a 4-2-4 or 4-2-2-2 or whatever, some version of a telephone number. Neither of those versions of Erik ten Hag's team that we saw last season really suits what Rasmus does best. And maybe it does with Zirkzee. I mean, we'll see how this adapts, I guess.
What I liked about Zirkzee also was he scores, and obviously he scores a late goal on his debut, and he doesn't go mad. And I'm generally in favour, obviously, of people going mad all the time at every opportunity. But there was just something I really liked about his swagger and confidence, where he felt more like, I scored and I'm happy, but this is what I do.
Yeah, apparently he's extremely laid back, just generally.
His interview afterwards was hilarious. The person who interviewed him, I can't remember who it was, she was trying so hard to get something out of him, and he had nothing to say. He didn't want nothing that he had to say, nothing that he wanted to say. He was just chuckling to himself, really. It was
the best line he came out with, he just repeated what the questioner had come up with, Wasn't that great to score on your debut? Yes, it was great to score on my debut.
Like a comprehension.
Yeah.
One of the things I quite enjoy about football interviews at the moment, it's a new genre, is when you see a footballer ask a question and midway through talking the shit that they are obliged to talk, they see their way out. And it does often involve referring back to the question. And that's why. And they have just this moment where you see a real light in their eyes where they're like, I've got it. I now have to get out of this question. Look for it. And then you see where they have that moment. And he was really good at that. Whereas Martinez comes and gives. Do you see Martinez?
Yeah.
That was excellent. That was like, oh my God, I'm so pleased this guy's on our side.
No, he feels like United captain material when he does that. I mean, obviously Bruno's the captain, but a real leader. I quite like the thing that they do on NBC over here, where they bring the manager out onto the pitch with the pundits and the presenter, and it's kind of very casual. And especially with Erik, it seems to get him talking. He seems to stop being so defensive, and he's a bit more chatty. And we've seen that recently with him anyway. I don't know.
He quite likes to talk about football, doesst he? I think.
He does, yeah. When you get him comfortable, and maybe he's feeling more comfortable now post season review and all that. I mean, it almost felt like he was with the cup final last season. Maybe he thought he was a goner, as well as several members of the press, and he sort of, kind of let go of all the baggage and became a bit more feisty. And he seems a bit more relaxed now. And especially if you get him talking about football.
Even last season, after he beat Liverpool, I remember he comes on the pitch and that's when he goes, because they can fucking go play football or whatever it was he says. Was that last season? That wasn't last season. It was the
first
before.
Season, yeah.
Season before. So I don't think it's that. I think he's not interested in those stupid press conferences where what you end up with, and I don't know if it's always like this. I have sat in some press conferences, mainly not football ones, but I have sat in enough to feel like I understand the mechanics of these things. And the way that it feels like it works is you have tabloid writers, who are, and not just tabloid always, they'll have a line in their head, or their desk will have a line, and they'll want an answer to a particular question. And they'll ask the question, they don't quite get the answer, or the answer around your answer to a different question, whether someone else will sort of ask a similar kind of question. And it feels like they've got a headline in mind and they're trying to get what they want said on that headline, which is sort of them setting the agenda, rather than ask the manager some interesting questions, see what comes back. Mm-hmm. And it feels like if you come and do sort of a stand-up interview with Carragher and Neville or whoever afterwards, then that's going to be a conversation about football.
Yeah.
No one's trying to get anything out of you beyond what you've actually got to tell them that they don't already know. And I feel like Ten Hag is quite good at those interviews. I love hearing the footballers give those kinds of interviews as well.
Yeah.
What we always want from this stuff is tell us stuff that we can't know. Exactly. And I really liked what Martinez said about taking responsibility and there being pressure. Like it's always like that. And what he said about people looking at him and seeing how he does it and be like, I can do better myself. Because I felt like in the first season he had that impact on Luke Shaw, that he was much more focused. And obviously you can only speculate as to why that is. But one of the reasons, I think, was because he's got Martinez next to him, and who wants a mouthful off of him? Because you will get one, because you know that he will be doing the right thing. Whereas with the people that Luke Shaw's used to playing next to, well, they're going to say, because 5 minutes, they'll be the one making the bollocks.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the press conference format. I don't think it's a great format for communicating anything, and you get a lot of stupid questions. And there's quite a few managers. I mean, Eric gave all these perfunctory answers, like in his first year or so in the job, where it was just like monosyllabic, only a few words more than yes and no, basically. And it was like nothing of interest. And the only time he'd do anything in depth is either with MUTV, where he's getting a bunch of softballs, or with the blackout with the written press, right? And there's sometimes a bit more depth in that part of it, but in the kind of open broadcast piece, it's always really dull, honestly. Yeah. Anyway, back to the game. Who we not talked about? Kobbie Mainoo, who again just does like you. I don't know. Do we want to continue the hype with him, or like, because United have put a massive amount of responsibility on him? They've not bought a midfielder yet, right? They're saying a 19-year-old in his second season has to be fucking brilliant to top 4 Premier League standards already. And this is an unusual thing, very unusual thing. Like, you could probably name like the number of central midfielders on one hand who are that age of that standard. And yet United have said that he needs to believe he is, and he basically is, right? I don't know whether he can keep it up every week, but every time I see him, I think he's such an unusual footballer. Like, he made something like 8 interceptions yesterday, and yet he was like nominally the number 8, right? So interceptions, clearances, keeps the ball ticking over. He's incredibly press resistant, and he'll make more take-ons than anyone else in the game. He's completely weird, and yet brilliant.
Yeah, I feel like I want him in the game more than he is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I still think that there's work to be done.
He needs to be making 80 passes a game, not 40. Yeah.
Yeah. But the things that he can do that are good are things that very few people can do, and he does them a lot. And it was another pretty good game. And also I think I liked some of the football we played around the box. This was some of the best football I felt like maybe that we played under Ten Hag in that regard. Just the quick passes that make spaces when you've got a deep defence, something that we haven't been good at under Ten Hag or under anyone else since Fergie. It felt like that was quite good at some points in this game. I think he's quite a big part of that, because he just sees things so quickly, and the weight of his passing is so good.
Well, think about who the front 6 were, and they are all, I mean, with different degrees, very good on the ball. So, we had Rashford, Ahmad, Mount, Bruno, Casemiro, and Kobbie Mainoo. Those are players who want to play short, quick passes, right? I mean, Rashford's slightly different because he's more direct than the rest of them. But apart from that, you've got Ahmad, who's very, very comfortable in possession, looking to drive at players and take players on, but wants to come inside and play those sort of wall passes, sort of, Jadon Sancho after too many coffees or something. And Mount, I thought, was maybe one of the best games he's had for United yesterday. He's, I don't know what his place is in this team still.
He's a rotation player. I mean,
he's going to be a rotation player for sure. But it was an awful. I mean, we don't need to talk about relitigate the fee and all of that. It's a hell of a lot of money to spend on a rotation player. But he was pretty good in that role. I thought looked sharper than almost at any point for United. I mean, to be fair, that was only his 16th game for United. So.
And I think as the team improves, we'll probably see more from him as well, because he feels like someone who could maybe play quite well with Zirkzee and Ahmad. Just those kind of ball players, like short passes into feet.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure Ahmad did enough to keep his place. We'll see what happens, because Garnacho is just a live wire. And we're in that difficult situation with him where he's an excellent substitute, because his qualities are quite well aligned with what makes you an excellent substitute, but also he's an excellent substitute because he's an excellent player. So get him on the pitch as soon as possible would be another way of looking at that. And I think we might see Garnacho from the start next game.
Yeah. I mean, but if even if Ahmad is not first choice, he's done enough on tour, I think, and in these first 2 games of the season to show that he is a high-quality player that's a good option in the squad. Almost certainly means that Facundo Pellistri is off. I mean...
he is off, Pellistri. We know this, do we not? We know that
Romano was saying they're talking to Panathinaikos, but I don't know whether that had been sealed.
And there was someone else as well who is apparently a good Uruguayan source who was saying, he's going to Panathinaikos.
Yeah, fair enough.
Good move for him.
Yeah, good move. He needs, it'll bring a little bit of money in for United, and he needs to play games. I mean, he's played more for Uruguay than he has for United over the last 3 years. So it's, good for him. And there's I guess if a bid comes in for Jadon Sancho, they'd bite anyone's hands off for that. And then you've got
I would bite your hand off to get rid of Jadon Sancho.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know, what happened in midweek, if he was ill or if he was not, if that's just an excuse or whatever. Let's just say that's true and it was ill. I didn't half think when Ten Hag said it, it's like, revealing personal medical information, Yeah. Jadon went on strike for 6 months after the last time he did that. So, I mean, it leaves us with a pretty good balance up front. I don't know if this is enough goals in this. We've scored 57, 58 goals in the Premier League. There's got to be 20 goals more than that. It just has to be. And
just the better defence, proper right back, an option up front. We should find, how many goals did we get last season?
58 in the league.
If we need 20 more than last season, and now we've got backup on the right wing, a backup striker, a proper right back, defenders that can defend high. In theory, we should do that easily. In theory.
Should do. I mean, assuming we don't get another 12 injuries, there's a much better balance, it feels already. I mean, lots of strength and depth at the back. I mean, if De Ligt, Maguire, Yoro and Martinez are our first choice, and obviously there's Evans as backup, that's some real strength and depth. Assuming that Lindelof is getting sold. I say assuming because he was spotted on crutches. So he's got himself injured just in time to not get sold.
Just to stay at United for an extra season. He thought he'd hacked it himself with a mallet.
Yeah. Just dropped it on his foot. Whoops.
Loves United so much that he can't bring himself to leave.
And we'll see. I mean, maybe it goes down to the deadline day on Ugarte or whoever, but it would clearly they've got sensible people now in positions of power at the club. Everyone must know we need another midfielder. So
2. I want 2.
I'd like 2, but at least one. In order to, otherwise, you are one Kobbie Mainoo injury away from total disaster in midfield. So, very good.
So I wonder when he'll get injured then.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he had 3 weeks off. It's burnout that's also the problem. Played a lot of football from October onwards and then went to the Euros with England. Had 3 weeks off and he's straight into he's had no pre-season whatsoever and straight into the game. Carlo Ancelotti said, which I thought was kind of interesting, he said they will be sending players on holiday throughout the season. They're going to, no winter break, Club World Cup at some point, and definitely Club World Cup next summer in the US, isn't it? I think. And then whatever the shortened version is this season, they're going to be playing a hell of a lot of games. And so I do wonder whether a few more clubs might think about this, because United might have 60-game season, because they've definitely got 8 games in the UEFA Cup, whatever the fuck it's called, Europa League in this Swiss format. And presuming they get out of that, because it's hard to not get out of it, honestly. I mean, you have to be really crap not to qualify.
I mean, the fact that we haven't yet managed this in the wilderness years tells you how bad you've got to be.
Yeah.
We haven't even really got close to doing it.
So yeah, we could well have a lot of games. So
I mean,
you can't expect Kobbie Mainoo at 19 to play 50 games.
I mean, it's sort of. I don't know how this stuff works actually, because on the one hand, you might think, well, you're young, you need to be nursed. On the other hand, you might think, surely, like you're quite close to your peak physical fitness. And I guess with him, because he had the first half of the season injured, he didn't play as much as he actually would have played. But
yeah,
you do need to find games to rest him. And I guess, I mean, that might be another thing that Mason Mount does is
play
rotate.
8.
Yeah, he plays instead of Mainoo sometimes. Or if you get Ugarte, then you've got the option also of playing Casemiro.
Yeah. You know, Mount has rarely done this in his career, play 8, but he has all the qualities. You'd expect his defensive stats for a supposedly attacking midfielder are very, very good. He should be a very good all-round midfielder. It's just he's rarely done it. And I'm not quite sure why, because his attacking stats are horrendous, always have been.
That's our Mount use case, I guess. Obviously, he doesn't quite give you what Mainoo does, but I think this is one of the things I think about it. If we become good, as you become good, you become more able to swap players in and out, where you can take out one of your best players, and the structure is such so that you'll be able to find a way to do what you need to do. Even though we obviously can't replace Mainoo with a player who's remotely like him. I mean, there aren't very many players remotely like him in world football. But if you've got some quality, then you should have the option of leaving him out every now and again. But I mean, that's not something that anyone will do quite yet, because obviously you've got Brighton next week, then Liverpool.
Yeah,
I guess you start thinking about that after the internationals are over.
Yeah.
Because you're not about to start leaving someone out, then watch them fuck off and play for England against Finland, are you?
No. I mean, and it's Brighton started the season extremely well under Hertzula, forget, and who is younger than several members of United's squad. It's kind of interesting to see how he goes. And they've spent a bit of money this summer, Brighton. You'd imagine they're going to be pretty strong this season. And then Liverpool under Arne Slot. A kind of interesting performance from them. I thought, pretty average in the first half. Trying to transition to a different style of football, it seems.
I mean, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Trying to play non-Jurgen Klopp football with a squad that's been built specifically to play Jurgen Klopp football.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it's going to work. I didn't see Liverpool yesterday, but the thing that Liverpool have, and they will have for the next few years, is they have loads of goals. So even if they're not playing well, and I don't know what happened with them yesterday, if the system's not working, they will score. They'll find ways to score goals because they have loads of goal scorers.
Yeah, the Jota goal was a case in point, wasn't it? It was a nicely weighted ball through, like Salah could take it first time and played it across the Jota. They just score those kinds of goals, whatever the system is, really easily. So anyway, not to talk too much about Liverpool, but two really tough games for United coming up. We need all the players back and all the players playing well, you'd imagine. Do you think Zirkzee's in the team next week?
Yeah.
You kind of think he should be, right?
Just for so many reasons. Just the first reason is it's just one of momentum. If you've got strikers scoring goals, keep them scoring goals, particularly when your other striker's injured. Also, the team we did play some nice stuff, but I feel like the team will function better with a centre forward.
Yeah.
And I saw enough from him to think this guy can play.
Ivan Toney's available. Would you take him for 30 million or so?
I like Ivan. I think he's a good player, Ivan Toney. I really like his composure on the ball and his physical presence. But he's we've brought Zirkzee to do a lot of what Toney does. I mean, I know Toney scores more goals. With all of this stuff, you're always thinking about, not just about, do we have a use for this player? And sure, if you want 3 or 4 brilliant strikers, Ivan Toney would be a very good third choice. But then you're thinking, well, he's not leaving Brentford to be third choice. And then you start to think about squad dynamics, and you find yourself you don't want to be in a position where you have players and it feels like when you leave them out, it's a problem and it attracts attention. And I find like Maguire said before is one of those. And you go and sign Tony. I don't feel like we've got 30 million quid to be tossing on a third choice striker, particularly.
Yeah, it's probably fair. Although, in Fergie's time, he had 4 strikers, of course, and it was all fine because he got them enough game time.
But we played 2 up front then in those days. So you played 2 in all the games. Whereas now, even at the end of the Fergie era, in most of the home games, we were playing 4-4-2.
Yeah.
So you could have those strikers because they'd all get enough games.
Yeah.
Well, if you're playing one up front in basically every game, then it'd be quite hard to have 4.
Yeah. It's interesting, Ivan Toney. I only realised today one of the reasons why he's agitating so hard to move is he's still on the same contract he signed when he moved from Peterborough to Brentford, and they were in the Championship. So he's 28 and has never been paid. We've got about 25 players paid more than him.
Yeah.
Including Tyrell Malacia, who in fact he's paid so much more than Ivan Toney that he's made more money last year than Ivan Toney has made in his entire career.
Wow.
Yeah. I was just adding it up. I mean, it's, there or thereabouts. So, yeah. All right. I kind of think that's it. We've run out of things to say. And no midweek game. We'll probably be back with a.
There always used to be. This is a development I don't like. There always used to be a midweek game.
They did
the first round.
Game week 2 was
And it's just annoying. Even I'm just annoyed, because you wait for football to come back, and we had to wait basically a whole week between the end of last season and the start of this when the Olympics was over. And then we used to have this midweek game, and because I want to see United play again. I don't want to wait till the weekend. I mean, maybe when I see what happens, that's exactly what I will want.
No, I mean it's odd, isn't it? Because it is going to be a really jam-packed season because of the changes. But we've got a week off, then Brighton, then a week off, then Liverpool, and then it's the international break, isn't it? Or do we have another game before the international break?
No. So the international break between Liverpool and Southampton.
Yeah, right. And so we don't see United for 2 weeks then.
I mean, it's one of those things where I hate it, but you have to play international football at some point.
Yeah. But then you get into December, January, February, and there's going to be 2 games a week solidly without a break. So, there you go.
But I'm not sure what the solution is to this one, because I know I hate International Week. I don't enjoy having to cover it professionally, but I want international football to exist. Like, there are parts of you that, and I'd say I better even have an international team that I support. I mean, I support Ghana, I guess. And you rarely have. There are certain things that international football can give you that you do not get from club football, but the problem being that sort of the stuff you have to do in order to get to the World Cup and the Cup of Nations and the European Championships is you have to allow a lot of stuff that isn't that entertaining at times when you would quite like to be entertained. And I don't know what the Nations League was, I guess, a good development, trying to give context and competitiveness to international friendlies, but ultimately you still I think that sort of means people care a bit more in the moment, like there's something resting on this game. But who can remember who won the Nations League? I mean,
I don't.
I mean, I know I did the final for work once. I think France did one. Benzema scored a brilliant goal in the winner of one once. Maybe Belgium have won one thing, lose to Holland. I mean, but it doesn't matter. Like, you're not getting a star on your shirt for one of them, are you?
One would hope not. No, I'm going to be looking forward to completely ignoring England until around about June 2026. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone. Hopefully we'll be back on Monday for the Tactics Pod with Darnish, for Patreon backers, patreon.com/NQAT pod. We'll probably do some shorts on the YouTube channel. Just search for No Question About That on YouTube. Daniel is at Daniel Harris on Twitter. You haven't got a middle initial in there, have you? No, Daniel Harris. I'm NQAT pod. Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening and your support. And we'll catch you next week.
Peace.